Morning to our millions of viewers here in Nigeria, the continent, and all around the world. This is the Morning Brief, August 5, 2026. I'm Kelly Egiga.
And I'm Jeffrey. On a lot of urgency, if you will. I'm just thinking about that. There's a lot of things I would like to do before the year wraps up, and I'm trying to race against that. There was January all the way to July. Maybe it's typical Nigerian mentality for some of us, but we have to do what we have to do to make sure we meet all the goals. But thank you for joining us. As always, we're broadcasting live from Lagos, Nigeria, our nation's commercial nerve center, and right here on Channels Television is our global headquarters. Kelly, before we get into some of the things we want to talk about and get the show going, I'm really concerned about this Calicut bishops and the back and forth within them and the presidency. The one that really concerns me, look, there are things you can say in your private spaces with your friends or with whoever you want to talk to, but as soon as you come to public spaces, like social media is public, television is public, the pages of newspaper is public, radio is public, so we have all of these public spaces. So what I see in terms of the remarks of some persons who are using certain words against eminent personalities in Nigeria is very, very troubling. Now, if there is, with greatest respect, any regular random person with respect saying things, I may not pay attention to it, it's really none of my business. But when people you feel that should know better begin to use words and description to describe someone because they do not like or they don't appreciate their point of view, it's very distasteful and it's very, very painful to see and watch. Whether it's the cardinal or the sultan or our very Nobel laureate or Reshaping, or some of these men who have achieved a lot, they may say things or do things that you may not agree with. There's a civil way to have a conversation. There's a civil way to disagree. On social media, some of you curse me out, some of you commend me. I will never reply. I'm not that guy because I'm very focused. I know what I'm doing. I understand what I'm doing. We may not always be right, but when you come to public space, there's a language. There's a candor. You can't be uncoached, you can't be irresponsible with the way you use your words. I disagree with the president on a lot of things. I disagree with the government. It doesn't matter whether it's a PDP or an APC government. I disagree with lots of governors. But you mind how you use words, the choice of words. In fact, some of the words I have seen being used on some eminent personalities, clerics especially, clerics. I can't even repeat it on television, and it's very, very shameful that certain persons who should know better cannot contain and constrain themselves when it comes to the use of language. I think it's irresponsible and has to stop.
Jeff, I think that also reflects the society that we have created. I totally agree with you. And the interesting thing is sometimes, we also posted a video just yesterday on Sunday, and it got a lot of traction. I'm not going to give us details, but sometimes the fact that the average Nigerian will not even take his time or her time to look at the interview from the start to finish. Perhaps one person picks a snippet of what was said, and then there you go with the opinions and abuses and all of that. And so it's a reflection of the society we have created. Yes, on this table as well, we have criticized the government of the day and previous administrations, but there's a language to use. Where people who pride ourselves as people who have virtue, who have values, who have culture, who have some sort of heritage. But it looks like all of a sudden we're throwing all of that, out of the window and all of that. So we have to sit back sometimes. I've seen the controversies, I've seen the responses, in fact, even from the government officials, and the Dari has made his comments about the position of the bishops and all of that. But I think we have to be careful so that we do not things don't get out of hand, especially because we are a few months to an election, and we're indeed hitting up the politics so really badly with the kind of things that we say online. I think some people will say, no, it's my view, it's my opinion, but you must be careful because your opinion could be considered or misconstrued. So that's why you have to be careful with your choice of language and your words when you post. Yes, there's the freedom of expression. Yes, you're allowed to express yourself, but I think that we should also have some sort of boundaries, when we do that.
Some people will never learn, and I don't always. There are two people. So that I don't forget. I don't argue with someone who has no value for his life. I don't argue with somebody who I know I'm wasting my time. So when we say these things, as I said, we're not talking about any regular, with respect. Everybody is a creation of God, so we have to respect them. But there are certain persons. There's a way I will talk, even about what I disagree with. You'll be disappointed in terms of the choice of language, and I will never use those kind of language in public. It's not going to happen. As I was talking, Kelly, I saw somebody, I'm not going to call the person's name, I'm looking at our YouTube channel. The person said, if you talk anyhow, you collect anyhow, regardless of your personality. That's irresponsible. That's not what we're talking about. You can disagree. I disagree with a lot of the people I respect when I disagree with them. But that's disagreement. Don't disrespect them. That's just what we're saying. Disagree sharply. You cannot hold it. That's your position, and it's within your right to do so. But let's go on to what the president has done that is commendable. Increment between 30 to 80% to over 250,000 of our troops. I think this is a good one coming in from the presidency and the president himself. There are a lot of moving sides. First, it was the expansion of the divisions from 8 to now 12 with 4 additional ones, which is supposed to help us have more boots on the ground, response time, forward basis, so that all of the things that we complain about, because one of the problems we have is the issue of corruption, the issue of complicity, the issue of men on the ground, the issue of response time. So the administration perhaps is trying to look at all sides, but more importantly, the issue of welfare and remuneration. As a matter of fact, Kelly, I just got a message, was it yesterday, of some persons who are retired military officers who are complaining that the promise of pay increase that they had from the president, they haven't seen an implementation yet. So they want to make a case out of it. Hopefully can host them. So I was surprised to see, it was like almost a coincidence. Same day, we now see that the president has said, look, from the generals, Major General, Lieutenant General, Brigadier General, and the generals, I think a 30% increase, and then the colonels and the rest, I think about 50%, and then the lower cadre about 80%. So kudos to the president, kudos to this approval. Whether it's for political reason or not is not important to me, because we know that during election a lot of promises are made, a lot of increment can happen. That's why people, unions and comrades, this is when they make their cases known, whether it's ASU, medical doctors, everybody who can make a case. Because the way the politics is played, now that they are desperate for votes, if you don't put them on the edge, and you may not get anything after the election. So it's almost like a recurrent decimal that we're used to. But particularly, Kelly, I did host a session, I talked about it the other day in Abuja, which is why I went to Abuja. And I said, I think it's counterproductive. It is planning against yourself. If you go and give a man a gun who has said, I am ready to die for my country, which is one of the most honorable thing to do. I don't think anybody will say, I want to die for Nigeria because of money. I don't think so. So if they chose that, if they made that choice, which a lot of Nigerians may not be able to make, I think anything less than 300, 400,000 as their minimum pay is not worth it. So I don't know what the minimum is. We're going to find out that, but I commend the president on this, and I hope that this is going to be implemented as quickly as possible. Whether this is political or not, I don't care. The most important thing, so the wage bill has increased now from 600 billion to about 900 billion. I think it's worth it. I support it. If you want to increase it more, we will back you, Mr. President.
This is absolutely commendable. Yes, I know the critics would always come from Mr. President, but it's commendable. The issue of welfare of those at the front lines is something we have hammered over and over again as a network. And so to see this, yes, the timing, some would question it, but I think it's commendable. The implementation date we hear is September 1, according to the statements by Bayo Ononuga. So we hope to see this, and we hope that, because some of these military guys, some have lost their legs, some have lost their hands, amputation. It's maybe one part of their bodies is being amputated and all of that. Some have lost their lives. They've paid the ultimate price. And you know someone who perhaps knows someone who lost a father or a brother or a husband, and vice versa. So I think it's really commendable. I know there are some sort of question marks. Some have said, "No, why don't you do this for the police as well? The police is perhaps the oldest security agency. They deserve more of this kind of welfare." Some say, "Oh, the reason is also that if you do this, it means that you're also maybe pushing the army to continue with the issues around internal security and all of that." But I think it's commendable. Some people say it's one step at a time. So let's hope that after this, we'll see more of this increase in the package and welfare of those at the front lines, especially because a lot of things have played out. I mean, if you see the bizarre conditions these people serve, I mean, if you go to the north, for instance, and see where these people are made to sleep, what they are made to eat, we sit at the comfort of our houses and we have 3 square meals, but that's not the case for the average military personnel. So this is commendable. Some, again, who criticize President Bola Tinubu, but I think, you know what, he's a master strategist. Hate him or you like him. There's a former president who built, I think, 9 or 10 tertiary institutions and maybe 2 in the south. He built 9 or 10 in the north and built 2 in the south. Perhaps people said he was going to use that to appease the north, but he lost an election. So President Bola Tinubu is a master strategist and he knows how to play the game. If this is for the game, I do not know, but because it affects the welfare of the military officers, we are in total commendation for this one.
So let's tell our servicemen, thank you for your service.
Yeah.
For you to pick up arms, whether you are the policeman or you're the military or the DSS, there are sacrifices you've made that we will never know.
They're not the best equipped security officials in the world. They're not the best of them.
Let's say this clearly and here and now. We are aware there are sacrifices you will make and you have made, that nobody will ever come and say thank you. In fact, you'll be blamed for the little ones you've done. I'm not saying you're perfect. I'm not saying you are excellent. No, I'm saying that you have committed your life to the preservation of law and order and the sovereign integrity of our country. We will never, as a country, as a people, take it for granted. So when we are critical of you, it's because we have high expectation of you. And so we're joining every Nigerian who is of goodwill to commend the president and ask that if more can be done for you, let it be done. You deserve more in terms of your pay, in terms of your welfare. When you retire, you should have a great life. So thank you for your service. For every one of you who are military persons, policemen, DSS, the list goes on. Thank you. We appreciate you. This is a rarity most of the time you hear, but we will continue to say thank you. We have not lost sight of what you are doing for our country. We expect more, but whenever it's time to say thank you, we will always say thank you, because it's not easy to say you want to die for your country. It's not easy. Well, before we get to the papers, guys, the Operation Gazelle too. Well, in 2023, Nigeria was struggling with our FX. Sometimes you get import licenses. I didn't have the foreign exchange to be able to back this import. Our reserve was low. Well, that's commendation to this president. I think they've done well in terms of that. So that's why I'm even wondering why they went for Operation Gazelle. We're going to look at all of this. So for those of you who may not understand what I may be talking about, under President Muhammadu Buhari, there was a time we took a facility, I think, from Afrexim Bank for about $3.4 billion in terms of cash for crude. So it's not as if they were giving us dollars so that they will get it back in crude. So it was like forward sales in that kind of scenario. It was supposed to be for 5 years and there were terms. That was for FXR creation. Now the federal government has gone back to say they are refinancing it. I think we had paid about 1.5 billion of what of it, remaining 1.5. So they are refinancing it to now make it 4.5, such that 1.5 covers the old one, and then 3 billion, a new facility to help, our priority areas in our public finances. That's on one hand. On the other hand, they've also repurposed it such that I think we're committing about 90,000 barrels a day. I think it's going to be about 78,000 barrels a day. There are so many questions to ask when it comes to this in terms of interest, in terms of why this is happening, even when we have a good reserve. So the economists will be here to help us break it down. So our job is to bring you up to speed with what the numbers are saying. Kelly, you got anything on this?
Yes, I think for me it's the words of
it's an additional loan, but this time we're paying back with accrued oil.
That those who question it really. But the words of the vice president is what struck me, and for me that's where my interest lies. I'm trying to see if I can pull out the exact words of the vice president yesterday at the NEC. After the NEC, he said that government policies are often heard before they are seen. Speak through the price of food, condition of hospitals, records in schools, strain on families, the confidence of those who invest their labor in the nation's future, and very importantly, the ambitions of state governments. And Yadeda also said that, or called for a responsive, scalable, and data-driven social protection policy to tackle multi-dimensional poverty in Nigeria. That is my interest. The policies are good, but the interest for me and my concern is that when you do all of these things, when you do all of these, your policies and all of that, let it translate to the cost of living, as you've rightly said. Scaling up that social protection, but for me that is where my interest is, that you do all of this and the average Nigerian feels the impact of this, your FX, of this, your gross domestic product, whatever it is. Let the average Nigerian feel the impact, because that's where the question marks are for many Nigerians. The fact that when you do all of these things, it looks good, it sounds good on paper, but the reality is on ground. The headwinds are biting really hard. So I'm happy that the vice president said that. He said it with the responsibility of chairing that committee. I hope that they get to see this through. Jeff.
Yes, at the end of the day, one of the questions we're going to ask is the interest on this. I don't know, maybe between 9 to... There's a way these things are calculated. It's not an all-commerce conversation per se, because it's technical when it comes to these finances. So we're going to query all of that with the economists who will join us later on the show, because this is our future. This is like, we don't have enough FX, or we need some money. Take our crude, give us the money, and refinancing. It's a bit technical, but we'll try to break it down and help you understand what exactly this means for you and I, because it's your money, it's your crude, it's all of us, your Commonwealth. The people who are employed to do the work for us are the ones doing this. And I think this government needs to be a lot more transparent when it comes to public finance, because sometimes the more they explain, the more people doubt them. That means there's no clarity. We'll take a break, and when we come back, Igor Akere will join us to help us make sense of what the papers are dealing with. Stay with us. Welcome back. Mr. Igor Akere is a member of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. He joins us. Mr. Akere, good morning and welcome to the program.
Yeah, Geoffrey, good morning, and Kelly, it's a pleasure to be here this morning.
Good morning.
As always, there's something I'm checking on your shirt. Whether you didn't wear traditional, didn't wear tie, I'm trying to, there's something, it looks like there's a change in the wardrobe this morning. I'm trying to figure it out. but
don't even bother. It's just, I'm just trying to acclimatize, the situation is bad, but everybody's coping,
All right, Mr. Akere, that's an aside. Let's go to this Nigeria, our first paper. There are two stories I would like you to binge on. The lead story and the story below the pictures you see there. FG unveils pay rise for 250,000 troops. Lowest rank gets 80% increase. I'm not sure of how much that comes to. We need to find out. Annual military wage bill rises by 640 billion naira as government seeks to boost morale. That's a page 4 read. And then at the very bottom, 2027 Amechi can't deliver votes. Coalition no threat to Tinubu, says Wike hit Bode George. Attack on an icon unfair, ADC VP candidate. What do you make of this story, sir?
Well, I think these are very important stories this morning. Incidentally, I was one of the editors at This Nigeria, a very serious newspaper. Now, to the issues. First, I've read reports where some persons are criticizing the president that he's increasing the salaries of Nigerian troops because of the 2027 general elections. I do not think that is what it is. I completely disagree with those who hold that opinion. We all agree in this country that we are faced with very severe, insecurity, banditry, kidnapping for ransom, and of course terrorism, that is almost engulfing the entire country. So there's no better time to boost the morale of our troops. There are about 250,000, the numbers currently, the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy. And as the papers rightly reported, from the generals, from brigadier generals to major generals, lieutenant generals, and the generals, they are getting a 30% pay rise. Colonels to colonels to warrant officers, they are getting 50% pay rise, and from staff sergeant to private, the average private soldier gets 80% pay rise. That is a morale booster. The last time we had they've increased their salaries to 100,000. And we saw the uproar. Every Nigerian agreed that that money was just too small for them, for anybody to put his life on the line. So that is kudos to Mr. President, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I do not see any politics in this. Every Nigerian thinks that it is time to raise salaries, whether it's that of the armed forces or the civil service. And even those of us who are journalists, we also need a pay rise because, if you look at the economic indices, whether at the macro level or the micro level, its prices of goods and services are quite high. So increasing salaries at this point is strategic. From cumulative wage bill of 660 billion, it is rising to 924 billion. That's for the armed forces. The president says that the country is earning more money now from all of the economic reshuffles, all the principles, all the policies that he has put in place, that the more money is coming in. So I think it should go around. The armed forces cannot be left out. Yeah, with regards to criticism of Amechi by the FCT minister, who says that Amechi is of no electoral value. For anybody to dismiss the former Rivers State Governor, Chibuike Amechi, that is of no electoral value, I think for me, I think that is within the realm of politics. Chibuike Amechi is a very serious politician in this country. He served as minister 2 terms under former President Muhammadu Buhari. Yes, whether anyone likes it or not, he pitched his tent more in the north. He built the Transport University in Daura, that is Buhari's hometown. He faces criticism anyway from those of us who are from the Niger Delta and the south of Nigeria, that he was not able to build rails across the Niger Delta region, and then there were no good roads during his time. Well, to that extent, he gets some bashing. But whether it's of electoral value, I agree that Chibuike is a very strong politician. He has electoral value. For anybody to dismiss him, well, that might be to that individual's peril. So I do not agree with that. Well, there are a lot of issues coming up, and I think that we are approaching the election year. There will be criticism from all sides, pro and for, as it were. Now, the big story, as also reported by This Nigeria, the visit of the Catholic Bishop Conference of Nigeria to the president on July 28th. That's last month, and all the hula baloo that is generating. It is so unfortunate that every time there is a different opinion from what those in the presidency want to hear, they take on the role of attack dogs, and then they seriously attack that individual. I think this time, I think that the managers of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, they are not doing a good job. For my former boss, Bayo Nanuga, he was my boss at the News Temple PM News, and to Daniel Bwala. Daniel Bwala is a lawyer, one can excuse him. But for professional journalists who should master the art of public communication and image management, it is not every time that somebody criticizes the president that you just attack the person. In this case, I have not even seen where John Cardinal Nayekon, who addressed, now who appeared on Channels TV, to give clarification, to give some, because most Nigerians, including members of the Catholic Church, want to know what has happened in their meeting. And then he tried to give some clarification by saying that, the president pushed back on some issues, but these were the core issues. One, the issue of return of missionary schools back to the churches, the economic hardship that Nigerians are facing, the independence of INEC, that is the Independent National Electoral Commission. I think the Catholic bishop wanted the president to do more by of course, granting more autonomy. And they actually canvass for first line charge for the INEC, so the INEC can draw their resources from first line charge instead of budget approval by the president. As we know, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. These are really of genuine concern to Nigerians, really. So for anybody to push back, or Cardinal Naiko, and says that he is not reflecting the collective views of Nigeria, I think that is just a misnomer.
All right. Mr. Keha, I think we'll have to stay with that particular story, but we'll switch gears to the New Telegraph because that particular story would also get our attention. The rider at the bottom of that newspaper this morning stays with Onaiko on State of the Nation. It says, Church has duty to speak truth to power. Catholic Laity Council there defending the bishop or bishops. There've been the back and forth as to whether or not the church should be involved, or if religious leaders should speak on politics or stay on the pulpit. Politics or pulpits, should religious leaders speak on issues around politics at all?
Well, for those who think that religious leaders should stay aloof, should not speak on what is happening, around them on politics, they are making a mistake. Now, these religious leaders that we talk about draw their strength and inspiration from the Bible, and for Muslims, they draw their own inspiration from the Quran. And if you look at prophets in the Bible, they spoke truth to power. If you look at Pharaoh of Egypt those days, prophets in the Bible spoke to Pharaoh. If you look at Samuel and Saul, there were prophets who also met them and spoke truth to power, including King David. So for anybody to argue that it is out of place for religious leaders not to speak truth to power, I think they do not understand the role of the church. The church is a moderator. There is a barometer of society because the members, Christians themselves, are members of society. They feel the impact of policies of government, whether rightly or wrongly. And so what the Catholic bishops have done is to carry the message, the feeling of what the Christian body in Nigeria, the concerns to the presidency. If I were one of those managing the president's information, even though we had the president push back on television against some of the issues raised by these Catholic bishops, in managing the presidency, it is to give further clarification and explanation, and not to dismiss and then, of course, and not to dismiss somebody in the stature of Cardinal John Onayekon, who everybody knows is not flippant. He speaks truth to power. Whether in the days of President Jonathan, his voice was loud. During the 8 years of Buhari, his voice was loud. It was not silenced. And so, for anybody to think that because it is Tinubu that is in power, the Catholic bishops should keep quiet, that person must be making a mistake. And in any case, there's an African proverb which says that for anyone that kills with a machete, if he sees anybody holding a machete, he's going to become fanatic. He's going to be worried and afraid. If you recall, when former President Goodluck Jonathan was in power, the Pentecostal pastors were very active. I recall vividly Enoch Adeboye, who is the general overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church, led protests in Lagos, including the latter reign Pastor Tunde Bakari. They called musicians. It was a whole lot of drumming and protest in Lagos against insecurity in Nigeria at the time when the Chibok girls were kidnapped and President Goodluck Jonathan was in power. So So why didn't these individuals who benefited? Because I remember at the time, President Tinubu was governor of Lagos State, and there was a whole lot of criticism, and Goodluck took it with equanimity. He didn't arrest anybody. There was no insult. So why is it that now the same observations are coming from the Christian faith, and then there's this very strong negative pushback? I don't think it is going to do any good to the 2027 ambition of President Tinubu, in the elections. Rather, if this is not properly managed, it is going to stir up anger. If you look at what even the Northern Youth Council of Nigeria said through their president Isa Abubakar yesterday with the statement they issued, they are rallying support for Cardinal John Onayeko, and the Middle Belt Forum is doing the same thing. So if that is happening, you can see that it is already generating very negative feedback, and that is not good for a sitting president who wants to win re-election.
All right. Well, I think the one with Pastor Debe, I think they said it was a prayer walk, not a protest, but that the one with Pastor Tunde Bakari joined the protest, I think, in Ojota area, just to put context. Let's go to the Guardian newspaper, Mr. Akerea. Is leading with something different because there's nothing to add. I think we've said it over and over again. In fact, when we started this morning, Mr. Akerea, I was just giving my own 2 cents on some people who moved from disagreement with the Lord Spiritual Cardinal Nikon to literally insult and calling names, which is very, very distasteful and very poor coming from certain persons. You wouldn't expect them to use those kind of words. Let's go to the Guardian. 40% salary increase agreement, 57 state universities, others in limbo over selective implementation. The Guardian always doing the yeoman's job. State stagnation and research, 57 state universities in limbo with all of the data they've displayed in terms of federal gains and many others. So what do you make of this story? Is a page 6 read on the front page of the Guardian. If you can do that in 1 minute, sir.
Well, that's vintage The Guardian. I was a deputy editor and Abuja bureau chief of The Guardian at the time. The Guardian has a reputation for investigative reports, for using data to tell stories. So, but with the relevance of this story is not lost on every worker in Nigeria, even beyond the universities. We all know that the current wages across board, whether you're a civil servant, the formal and informal sector, the purchasing power is low. And that is why many Nigerians are being pushed into multi-dimensional poverty. So this is a relevant story, and I think the government has a responsibility to actually interrogate the wage structure across board in Nigeria, with inflation eating deep and the prices of goods and services, of course, getting beyond the reach of the average Nigerian. It's a strategic story that should draw the attention of the government, in my view.
Zakaria, always no holds barred. No matter whose ox is God, your perspective always on the program. Thank you so much for coming on the program. We appreciate and wish you the very best for the rest of the day.
Thank you very much. Do have a pleasant day, and for the rest of the team.
Fantastic. Well, there's a lot to unpack on the program today, one of which we're going to be hosting Bishop Wale Oke. There's a video that came out the other day, and he wasn't holding back. This proposal about banning preaching in buses and hawking. He said the Christians are not going to have it. Well, the senator said, I think it's the Senate leader said, they didn't bring this. It's been in the law. They just changed the itemization. Well, whatever it is, the bishop is not having it. That Christians will continue to do their evangelical work, if that will, no matter whose ox is God. But I'll allow him to do the talking today. But we'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
Early church, they were being persecuted. They were told not to preach again. Just like the Senate of Nigeria, Federal Republic, now they are telling them not to preach in bus. Make all the stadium in Nigeria to become a prison. If we want to enforce that law, we are coming. Or we break that law. Our master told us to go into the world and preach the gospel to every creature. You sit somewhere there and you're saying we shouldn't preach in buses. We will preach in buses. We will preach everywhere, because you are evil, making evil decrease. evil, we will rather obey God than man. That's what our fathers told them in those days. You better tell them. No Pentecostal must listen to that. And the national president, Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, I lead over 65 million people. Everybody, go into every taxi, go into every bus and preach. Let them arrest us. Let them turn National Stadium Lagos into prison. I will come there. Let them turn National Stadium Abuja into prison. I'll come there. Let them build more prison. They will be the one that will go there and they will rot there. And God will judge them. You don't go after killers. You don't go after those that are beheading. You don't go after rapists. You don't go after kidnappers. You don't go after bandits who are unlawfully carrying arms. You are not going after them. You are going after us who are preaching the gospel of peace that have changed the lives of people. We won't listen to you. You are not God.
Well, Bishop Waloke, the national president of the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, joins us live on the program from the ancient city of Ibadan. Bishop, great to see you this morning. How are you?
I'm very blessed. Good morning, my precious people in channels. Thank you for bringing me on again. Thank you so very much. May God bless you.
Amen.
And good morning to all the viewers across Nigeria and across the globe. God bless you all in Jesus' name. Thank you for bringing me on.
Thank you so much, Bishop. I mean, that's why it's good to have the Bishop early in the morning like this to make declarations into the atmosphere. Bishop, has your position changed yet about the comments you made to your church members and to members of the PFN as regards go into the world and preach the gospel? We will break the law, Bishop.
Now, we will rather obey God than man. Preaching the gospel everywhere is fundamental to the Christian faith. Everyone that is a Christian today is because he or she had the gospel preached to them and then they made a decision to follow Christ. So if anybody or any group of people is dealing with that, they're dealing with something that is fundamental to the church. And even the process by which they come to make that bill is faulty. If you're dealing with something of public interest, you invite the stakeholders to participate and to hear the view. Not that you are past it and you are presenting it to Mr. President for endorsement and then we're hearing of it. No, that's very, very insensitive. Now, before going on with that, the Constitution of Nigeria guarantees freedom of religion, freedom of speech to every Nigerian. And by our Constitution, the Nigerian state is a secular state. But the church in Nigeria has come under fundamental threats, existential threats, both from illegal people and from the system itself. Now, if you go back in history, you discover that a head of state, I think it was IBB, dragged Nigeria into OIC, Organization of Islamic Countries. Nigeria is not an Islamic country. Now, the Senate should deal with that. That is fundamental, not a matter of preaching in buses. The Senate should deal with that and pull Nigeria out of OIC. Again, the constitution that we have today was not made by the people of Nigeria. No, it was the military jackboot that was in power at that time that imposed that constitution on us. And it is skewed against the church in favor of a particular religion. In that constitution, Islam is mentioned hundreds of times. Anything Islam, Sharia and that. And the church is not mentioned once. Christianity is not mentioned once. And Christians in Nigeria are a little over 50% of the population. Now, that is a fundamental matter that the Senate should be dealing with, not a flippant thing about preaching in buses. So, and then again now, we are being attacked by various violent people, ISWAP, Boko Haram, Lakurawa, and all of that, all of which stem from Islam, and they are trying to forcefully make Nigeria an Islamic nation. They are targeting us, killing us in southern Kaduna, killing us in Plateau, killing us in Taraba, killing us in Benue, and they are making incursion into the south from Oyo State, from Kwara, from Oyo State, from Edo, and all of that. Now, this is fundamental. The Senate is the apex of the lawmaking process in Nigeria. They should be dealing with fundamental issues like that. They are not dealing with it. They are now tampering with something that is critical to our faith, stopping us from preaching in buses. When our master told us to go into all the world and preach the gospel everywhere, our fathers of old, the old apostles, they went everywhere and preached the gospel. Now, God told Philip in the book of Acts chapter 8 to join himself to the Ethiopian chariots. He said, join these chariots and preach to that man. And the man was a key man in Ethiopia. Philip obeyed and he preached to that man, and the man got saved. That's how Christianity came to Africa long before it came to Europe. Now, you are not telling us not to do that. The chariot of those days are the buses of today. I, as a person, have been preaching in buses since 1975. Several people have been blessed, their lives changed. Ministers of the gospel produced as a result of preaching in buses.
All right, Bishop.
Yes. So you are not telling us not to do it. We preach in buses.
Right.
So if they want to imprison us, let them come and arrest all of us. We are coming. We will preach in buses.
All right, Bishop.
They cannot stop us.
Yes, if
we realize that obey God. Yeah.
Yes, my apologies, Bishop. You've raised that point over and over. So the first point is you've mentioned the issue of, I think we've had you here on the program where you said you believe there is genocide. The government has pushed back to say there's no genocide. So there has been that back and forth. And then the issue, just a moment, Bishop, please, so that I can answer all of it at the same time. So that's on one hand. The other hand, they're saying that, I think Okpayemi Bamidele, who is the Senate leader, says they did not bring this law. It's not the first time this law has been there. It's been there. So they just changed the itemization, I think from number item 37 to 40 something. So it's been there. A lot of Nigerians, they don't know it's been there. So that's on one hand. I'm talking about some of the pushbacks they've also brought. Now the rationale behind this, I think they're also talking about this being distracting to the driver and some of the activities of the persons who preach in buses. So when you hear all of these pushbacks, how do you respond to it, Bishop?
Now, that is absolutely second thought. I've been preaching in buses since 1975. Up until now, there is no record of any distraction or any accident or any mishap as a result of preaching in buses. It's a targeted attack against the church. Now, if it's been the statute before, thank you for bringing it out. Let's expunge it from our statute. Some other people of other faith, every Friday, they will block roads all across the country and disrupt traffic. They are not dealing with that. They are not dealing with us on issues that are bringing peace, that are changing lives, that are turning wicked people to become righteous people, that are turning positive to become chaste lady, that are turning robbers into becoming preachers. Things that are changing lives, that are blessing people, that are contributing immensely to the peace and welfare of individuals and the nation. They're not telling us not to do it. Something that God commanded us to do. So if it's been the statute before, it's time to expunge it from the statute. And it's time to revisit the Constitution. The Constitution favors a particular religion against us, the church. And apart from that, there's current pressure. Now, okay, take for example, the Catholic bishops went to visit Mr. President and they had discussion. And the man, Cardinal Onaikan, told him frank truth that Nigeria is bleeding. Are we not bleeding? Are we not bleeding in Benue? Are we not bleeding in Kaduna, Southern Kaduna? Are we not bleeding in Goza, in Borno State? Are we not bleeding in Taraba State? Are we not bleeding in Kwara? Are we not bleeding in Oyo State? So should anybody attack a Catholic bishop for saying that? That is obvious truth. And then he said Nigeria needs economic pressure on them to be relieved. Is that not the truth? Now you are denigrating them, you are washing them down. That is unbecoming of a government that cares for the people. This appears like a government that is oppressing the church, and their pushback is not sufficient. They should expunge it from the statute. It's our fundamental right, and we are obeying the master. If you want to behead us for preaching the gospel, we are ready. If you want to imprison us for preaching the gospel, we are ready. If you want to make all the stadiums in Nigeria to become prisons, we are ready. We rather obey God than man. That is fundamental to our faith, and we're not going to surrender it. Not at all. Our fathers of old in the scripture, they were persecuted for it, they were in prison, they were killed, they were stoned. They didn't back down. No, and we will not back down. We will preach the gospel everywhere. Our Master, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ commanded us. That's the only command he gave to the church.
Yeah.
And you are not saying we shouldn't preach the gospel. Expunge it from the statute.
All right.
And go beyond expunging it from the statute.
Yeah.
Go and review the constitution. The current constitution is not our constitution.
Yes, so Bishop,
the constitution,
yes,
the constitution that mentioned Islam again and again,
yeah. Bishop,
Sharia again and again, and no mention of the church.
Yes,
we reject that constitution.
I hate to break your flow of thoughts, my Lord Bishop, but because we have to squeeze in as many questions as possible, when you say behead all of us, the proposed penalty for people who perhaps flout that law is 50,000 naira. That law, according to the argument is from the Senate, has been there since 2007. I like the fact that you've brought in the conversation around the Catholic bishops going to meet Mr. President and all of that. So it means that the PFN, it looks like the PFN is standing side by side with the Catholic bishops led by Archbishop Matthew Ndagoso, who is also the Bishop of Kaduna Diocese as well. But there's the argument as to whether or not religious leaders should speak about politics or stay on the call from our Master Jesus on the pulpit. Bishop, that's the argument.
But that argument is faulty. The Master told us to go into all the world and preach the gospel. And in Mark chapter 16 verse 20, the apostles, they went everywhere and they preached the gospel. That's what the scripture taught us. And I just mentioned in Acts chapter 8, God told Philip to join himself to the chariots of the Ethiopian eunuch, a high official of the Queen of Ethiopia at that time. And he preached the gospel to him, and the man got saved, and he got baptized, and then he took the gospel to Africa. So we are commanded not to preach in the church. No. To go out everywhere and preach the gospel to every creature. And by saying I'm siding with the Catholic bishop, the Church of Jesus Christ is one. There may be many denominations, but we have one faith, one Lord, one baptism. The church is one. If they attack the Catholic bishop, they are attacking the whole church. If they are saying we shouldn't preach the gospel, they are attacking the whole church. If we are being beheaded, we are being kidnapped, we are being targeted, and Christian genocide is going on, and they are not dealing with it, they are siding with the enemies of the church. If they are siding one particular religion, and it is mentioned several times in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that is supposed to be a country that's supposed to be not biased against a religion, that's supposed to be a secular state, it is time to review the entire system. the system is skewed against the church. The constitution is skewed against the church.
Bishop, if I may come in, yes.
That is what the Senate should be dealing with, not a matter of preaching.
Bishop,
we will break that law. We dare the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We will obey God rather than man. We will break that law.
All right, Bishop, if I may come in, you made a couple of statements. Well, I don't know whether I've ever seen or heard anywhere where the Nigerian state said they support one religion over the other, because Section 10...
It's in the Constitution.
No, I understand what you're saying. Section 10 talks about the secular state of our nation, that no state of the Federation shall adopt any religion. I know that Sharia is mentioned about maybe tens of times in the Constitution, and Christianity was not mentioned.
It's over 100 times.
So we'll get to look at the data.
It's not mentioned once.
Yes, but where I'm going to with
that is what the Senate should be concerned about.
Okay, I understand.
The Senate should be concerned about giving Nigeria a constitution that is that takes care of all of us, that mentions all of us. It's either you mention all religion or you expand religion from the Constitution.
Bishop, yes, I think you've made that point a couple of times. I just wanted to put in context that no official pronouncement from the government to deciding of any religion. But your point is noted. I'm sure they are listening. And that's why we need to be everyone. When I say me, and we, I mean Nigerians, religious bodies, ethnic nationalities, everybody, political parties have to be part of the Constitution Amendment. But where I'm going to is what Kelly did ask, my colleague Kelly asked. I think what irked and generated a salvo and the back and forth between especially the spokespersons of the president and some of the supporters against the bishop is the fact that the issue of INEC, they made an appeal that the democratic space should be, fair to all, whether ruling or opposition. The president, in his remarks, had said all is fair in politics, which did not go down well with a lot of people, because you have the levels of power in the institution of state, and that can be misinterpreted, which can consider abuse of power and is almost an impeachable offense. But where I'm going to is, when I've listened to their part of the argument, it feels like what makes them uncomfortable, I mean the ruling party and the people in the presidency, that the bishop's position on the neutrality of INEC is on the assumption that INEC is already taking sides. And they said that is not correct, which is why the president said INEC is doing well, is neutral. So should the bishops or the church have commented on the neutrality or otherwise of INEC? Because that looks like the bone of contention, not necessarily the economy or security.
Now, comment on the neutrality of INEC is not a political comment, it's moral. Because INEC is supposed to be independent of any pressure from the presidency, because the president is a member of a party, a political party. So if the Catholic bishop says, Mr. President, INEC should be independent, that is speaking the truth to power. That is speaking the truth to power. If they are uncomfortable about that, it means there is a hidden agenda. I mean, if they are fair and INEC is independent, they just tell them and say, excuse me, Mr. Bishop, INEC is independent, our hands are clean. If they now say INEC should be independent and the presidency is reacting against that, it means INEC is not independent. And an INEC that is not independent cannot do justice to all Nigerians. INEC does not belong to a political party. No, INEC is supposed to regulate all political parties. So when the bishops are saying that, they are not getting into politics. No, they are just saying what is fair, what is just. They are speaking truth to power. And the government, if their hands are clean, they should be comfortable with that. The fact that they are pushing back, all right, it shows that something is not right. So, and the church, like I said, is one. If the Pentecostals are speaking, the church is speaking. If the Anglicans are speaking, the church is speaking. If the Catholics, if you attack one, you attack all. And now, the Senate should deal with all of that. The Senate should deal with the impartiality of INEC. They are not dealing with it. They are dealing with preaching buses, preaching in the buses. That is changing life, that is blessing people, and we have been doing for decades, and there have been no record of any accident or distraction. The Senate should rise above that. The Senate should deal with matters that are fundamental. We are being killed in Kaduna. We are being killed. We are shouting Christian genocide, Christian genocide. The Senate is not bringing the weight of their office to bear on that. They are now attacking us and saying we shouldn't preach the gospel. We will preach the gospel.
All right.
Buses, everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, Bishop, it's interesting listening to you this morning. Maybe two questions in one. There are those who are saying that the reason why the church all of a sudden has found her voice is because perhaps the president is Muslim, the vice president is Muslim. And they've gone ahead to say, you know what, we're going to retain that ticket in 2027. So I don't know, perhaps if you have comments about that, because that's the belief in some quarters. My second question would be, Bishop, I know the scriptures would always say that prayer is the key. I mean, there are songs. Prayer is the key. There are songs. Prayer is the key. But Bishop, in terms of governance, I'm wondering what kind of conversations is the church trying to have with the government of the day and even previous governments? Because even the Senate is saying this was in our laws as far back as 2007. I believe that there's a level of strategic conversations and engagements the church should be having with governments of the day. There's even the part of lobbying as well. So I'm wondering, I know that prayer is the key, Bishop, but lobbying, strategic engagements should also be very essential to the church. What do you say, Bishop?
That's correct, and we are praying. In fact, we are pushing up prayer more than ever, because let me tell you, Kelly and your friends, the church is under pressure. Why should a nation where we have Muslims, Christians almost at equal number, why should we have Muslim tickets? But we're not making any issue about that, because 4 years ago we made noise about it, we spoke about it, we made press statement, we did albatoria, they didn't change, and we didn't want to waste our time on that. The parties are free to choose their candidates. Just let all candidates be fair to all. But all indices are showing that they are not being fair to the church. That Muslim ticket is one of it. The mention of Islam in the Constitution many times, and no mention of Christianity is one of it, and it's fundamental. The dragging of Nigeria into OIC by IBB, and it is not being reversed, is one of it. Then the targeted killing of Christians by various, numerous, many violent groups. You're talking of Fulani Herdsmen, you're talking of Boko Haram, you're talking of ISWAP, you're talking of Lakurawa, and all of them, they are shouting Islamic phrases before they execute, before they kill. Even currently, this week that is going on, killing is still going on in Benue, killing is still going on in Plateau. So the church is under pressure, and the system is not protecting us. The system is not speaking out for us. The system rather is touching something that is very fundamental, and they're saying we shouldn't preach in buses. Now, the Senate should rise up and protect the church in Nigeria, because we are citizens of Nigeria. We are in millions. We are a little over half the population, and we are under pressure. When we said there is Christian genocide, they are not speaking on our side, and they are not acting on our side. They are denying it, and they are spending billions of our taxpayer money to go and organize lobby in America to promote the lie that there is no Christian genocide. Killings are still going on, and we're not going to stop until the killings stop. Now, we will talk to government if the government is ready to listen. Are they invited us for a discussion on it since we have been shouting? We are making moves and we are meeting with brick walls. If they are not giving us opportunity to discuss, okay, why has the Senate not invited the church representative to speak about our accusation of Christian genocide? Is that not something major enough to engage the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? We said the church is not irresponsible. The church is made up of responsible leaders. We won't speak without facts. The facts are all over the place that the church is being targeted for genocidal elimination.
Bishop, now, just a moment, Bishop. My apologies. Well, just a moment, sir. Just a moment, Bishop. God, we're totally out of time, and I keep saying that they've always pushed back on the narrative of genocide, because the federal government will say both Christians and Muslims are killed, and that's a fact. Well, whether the issue of genocide or no genocide is always a heated debate at the end of the day. But where I'm going to with this, there are Christians in the National Assembly. Daniel Bwala, for instance, is a Christian from the northern Nigeria. There are Christians in the presidency. The wife of the president is a Christian. So, first, two questions in one, if you can answer them in 2 minutes, sir. First, as PFN, just like the Catholic bishop, try to engage with the president directly? Have you written and you've not been honored to get an invitation to, have some of this conversation? And then, isn't it time for the Christian community, for instance, to begin to strategize in terms of lobbying in some of these, because lobby is part of the whole thing. If you're not comfortable with a law and you want to influence that law, you lobby that law in your own favor.
Now, we are working on that, all right, to lobby, to make a presentation at every quarters to the presidency, to the Senate, and we are making attempt to reach Mr. President. And I hope, again, those are things I don't want to speak about publicly, about what is going on between us and the presidency. We won't speak about that publicly. We're making attempt, we're working on all that. But we are under pressure. We are speaking out. It's like the government is not hearing us. A responsible government should not be denying an accusation as heavy as Christian genocide. They should invite us to the table and listen to us. The facts are all over the place. Even channels, you reported recently the killings in Benin, killings again in Plateau, and it's been on and on and on. And all these killings are targeted at Christian communities. The killings of Muslims are going on, we agree, but that is the secondary killing. It is the Muslims that are supportive of everybody living and practicing religion, the one that are non-fanatical, that didn't agree with ISWAP, Boko Haram, Dakoawa, Fulani Esme. Those are the ones that are being killed for not agreeing with them. The primary target is the church. The Muslims that are being killed are the liberal ones who feel everybody should live and practice their religion without molestation. And those that are violent didn't agree with their thinking, so they killed them secondly, because they didn't agree with their philosophy of wiping out Christians and turning Nigeria into an Islamic state, because that is their purpose, that's their goal. They want to make Nigeria an Islamic state. That is what the Senate should be concerned about. If such things are going on, 20 killed in Benin, 20 killed in Borno State, in Plateau, in Kaduna. The Senate should invite the church for a Senate that cares, should invite the church for a talk. Nigerians are being killed. You are sitting there, you are making evil law. We will break that law.
Bishop,
break it.
Bishop, we're totally pressed for time. But again, thank you. These are your opinions, and perhaps that's of the church and PFN. I'm sure the government of the day would also contest some of the things you said, because we know that Christians are killed, Muslims has also been killed. But thank you so much, Bishop Francis Waloke is the president, Sword of the Spirit Ministries. He's also the national president, Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria. Thank you indeed, and happy birthday to you in advance, Bishop.
Thank you. Have a good day. God bless you. And let the Senate stop the killings of Christians. Let them stop.
It's not the Senate that is killing Nigerians, Bishop.
Let them expunge that.
That point, Bishop.
Because we will not obey that law. We will not obey that law.
Bishop, the church should lobby. The church should lobby and engage. Thank you so much, Bishop Francis. We are looking for your time, as always, on the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, first of the morning, brief from the church to something that concerns whether you're a Muslim or Christian or traditionalist. That has to do with Nigeria's economy. We're back in just a moment. Please stay with us.
Our next guest, Dr. Paul Alaje, is the Chief Economist at SPM Professionals. Dr. Alaje, thank you so much. You and I looks like we're doing our show a bit today, but it's fine. Good morning.
Welcome. Thank you so very much for having me. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Welcome to the program. Before we start with the things that will need a bit of explainers in terms of the refinancing deal with Operation Gazelle 2 of the federal government with Afrexim and then the debate that has ensued. Before we get to the deeper issues, let's talk about the cost of living. One of the things that ensued and that has cost a salvo with the Catholic bishops visiting the president was when the president said that the quality of life has improved in Nigeria, is better. Well, that is debatable because that is contrary to the position of his own Minister of Finance, who said that Nigerians, we have 5% unemployment rates and then 60 to 70% poor people in Nigeria. So whether it's multidimensional poverty in excess of around that or normal poverty, which is income poverty, multidimensional accessibility poverty. So there's a downside risk to the economy when it comes to those things. And of course, he played up the macroeconomic numbers as a foundation that would trickle down, which hasn't. I was surprised, Dr. Alaje, that my wife was telling me, I did not know, to be very honest, that a kilo of turkey is now more expensive than a kilo of Titus fish or something like that. There's a way, I did not know. That Titus fish a kilo, I think, is more expensive now than turkey. I think that's what I wanted to say. So I have what I call the egg standard. Egg standard is basically, I used to buy egg for 50 naira. Now I'm buying it for 250 to 200. So I want you to, with the data you have, respond to some of the assertions by the president, because the arguments on the bishop had, like Bishop Naika said, it looks like the president is not used to being told the truth. So he was a bit uncomfortable with that position, although he did a great job in pushing back. What is the truth about the state of Nigeria's economy in terms of trickle-down effect?
Thank you so very much. It's important we lay this argument to rest, whether the Catholic bishop, what they said was in line economically or whether it's not correct. So I will start with what economics call the implication or the aftermath effect of policy decisions. In the case of Nigeria, we have seen quite a number of them, from tax reform to subsidy removal to exchange stability and so on and so forth. And before this time, you recall that subsidy got up to about 6.6 trillion naira. So when government said we're handing off subsidy, what government was saying technically was that we want federal government to get a portion of that 6.6 trillion naira, while the rest will be shared amongst subnationals and the local government. Secondly, the government has tried to defend the naira such that the exchange rate is not as strong as it was. Naira became really weak. So in economic, for a closed economy, even though Nigeria is an open economy, there are at least three components. We have the household, which the bishop are speaking to. And I want Nigerians to listen very carefully. The bishop are speaking to at least two of the components of an economy. We have the household, we have the firm, we have government, and if you are talking open economy, we have import and export. So, but for the sake of Nigeria, let me limit the argument so that I don't turn it to a lecture to those three components. Government is saying, guys, I used to support business and household. I'm going to answer off. Face economic reality any way it appears. The question will now be, what will be the new prices of things? The price of flight ticket for the rich, I'm going to start with the rich, it went almost times 3. The price of sachet water, which went from 5 to 10 naira to about 30 to 50 naira. What does that mean? Cost of living for both the rich and the poor has increased. Now there are other external factors, which includes war in Iran, which is even more recently, war in Ukraine, Russia, Ukraine, which has affected quite a number of other things, while the policy of government was still running side by side with several externalities. So getting some more revenue, and you have seen that reported by FAC, that federal allocation of accounts to the federation. You have seen that more money by the committee is now allocated to the federal government, to the state government, even to the local government. Where the problem lies is what the Catholic bishops are talking about. This money is not trickling down. Poverty has elevated, not my word, and not that of Catholic bishop. But poverty in Nigeria was not this high, at least in the last decade. It was not as high as we have it. Now, what really matters? What can you really measure when it comes to whether the economy is better off or worse off? We can talk the numbers, and as an economist, I can give you the numbers and tell you what is happening to inflation, combine that with unemployment, combine that all of those. The question is, what is the implication on household? Let me say this to you. The most important thing economists are after is standard of living. If the standard of living is worse off, then economists are not trying. If the standard of living is better off, then economists are trying. So we made all of those policies so that government can inject money directly on infrastructure. Those are the assumptions. Can invest it on rail, can invest it on road, can invest it on those. I've seen in some states some improvement, and I can tell you large improvement in the FCT. I've seen some improvement in Oyo. I've seen some improvement in Kaduna. I've seen some improvement in Abia, especially Enugu State. You see some improvement coming up to those states. But I will tell you that the time it takes for that policy to translate to improve life is long. Perhaps that is why Catholic bishops are saying that we need to find a way to mitigate the impact of poverty in life of people. Nigeria's inflation, even though it's at 15%, above 15%, less than 16%, but I will tell you that prices are elevated. Because you need to start thinking of inflation at 15%. The way you were seeing the numbers high, why? We have rebased it. It does not mean we have gone to the market to reduce the prices. That is not what we have done. What we have done is to rebase the number, and after rebase the number, inflation itself is coming down. 1, because we have seen improvement in reserve. 2, because we have seen relative stability. So the positives of policy government is making. But as this translated to income, labor, which I warned labor very vehemently, and I remember it was on this show, I started warning labor, do not settle for 70,000 naira. What you need to settle for as minimum, as of that time wage was reviewed, must be 100,000 naira. Today, labor is coming back to say, oh, this is no longer sufficient for us, because we knew, see, economics, we sit with the numbers, we will project the future. And perhaps that's different between us and accountants. Accountants are very wonderful colleagues, we have so much respect for them, but that benefit of looking at what your future will look like, we can tell you today that if you are not careful, if you don't change some of the parameters, your future may be miserable. Yes, unemployment is 5%, but you need to ask, 5% of what? The 5%, is it people like you who work 8 hours a day? That is 40 hours a week, and you can calculate what that will be in a month. No, the 5% you have is those who work only 1 hour. 1 hour. If you look at 2 hours is more. If you look at 3 hours is more. If you look at even 4 hours, the number we're using, the methodology we're using is over 30%. But we are talking of only 1 hour a week. What does that mean? If you call a Merua, some of my friends in the up north here, come and fetch water for me, and he does that 1 hour, and he doesn't have any other job till next week, according to our numbers, that person is now employed. Or perhaps if you have capacity to do more than he's doing, we can say he's underemployed. Does that depict the reality of hunger, poverty, and deprivation? The answer is no. But does that mean that the policy has not helped? I can tell you where the policy has helped. In terms of no revenue to government, we have seen relative stability in exchange rate. We have also seen improvement in some key areas. So when Catholic bishops make their statement, it is important to note that that statement is extremely correct. And anyone who says that they are not correct in economics, I tell you, they are perhaps not telling you the truth.
Well, Mr. Alaje, always interesting to listen to you speak about Nigeria's economy. You know, my colleague Jeffrey was talking about Turkey and Titus. For those of us, the masses, we don't even know what Turkey is again. I can't remember the last time. Maybe we're waiting till it gets to December. So that's the concern. It's a big issue. So let me ask you a very simple question, because the last time I remember I was on this program that you featured, you spoke about the fact that you have friends in government. Those your friends that are in government, are they proud of this economy as things stands right now? There are those who also say that this administration have been bad handlers of Nigeria's fiscal policies. I wonder what you say about these two questions before I come
well, first of all, regarding my friend relationship and conversation with my friend is purely private, and I'm even happy that they are in government, because things could be worse if they are not there. So my private conversation with my friend, I will keep that private. And I can also, the only thing I can say is that we speak, but they also show effort regarding what they are doing. A very popular professor of economics, I met him some time ago in one of the a national program that usually hold in Lagos, and the prof, he was one of the advisors to the former president. He said it is one thing, he said, Paul, it's one thing for us to advise, it's another thing for our principal to hear us. That is even if we see the principal as often as we should as a member of a committee, Presidential Advisory Council at the time. So I will not blame those who work in government, but I think, very importantly, Nigerian government needs to set up a structure where economists and those that are working within the financial sector, within the financial component of government, can sit with the president. And this is my recommendation to President Tinubu. It could be a weekly thing or a bi-monthly thing. They need to together watch what the numbers are saying vis-a-vis what is obtainable in the market, what is obtainable in the real time. To assume that the number is saying this, especially when we have rebased most of the numbers. 1, inflation. 2, unemployment, and quite a number of other numbers I can mention. Even GDP has been rebased. So when you look at the number and they are looking good, in economics that is what we call rebasing effects. The matter may not be as good as we think, and it may not be as bad as the number is suggesting. If we look at it and we compare what the number is saying with what is happening in the real economy, then we can see whether we are making progress or not. And I know that government has capacity. Why? All the people in government came from us. We are the electorate. We are the one that elected them to office. So it's important for them to listen to us, from time to time, so that they know that truly there is proper representation. And anytime they come back to meet the people will say, we love your policy. Your policy has positive implication on prices, and the price, because it has positive implication on prices, we are going to keep you in power. So watch how I started: the people, the policy, prices, then you can retain power. When you break any of those pieces, I'm afraid the people have power, and they might tell people in power not to keep being in power.
All right, let's move on from here, from the macro argument to the issue of borrowings. But this time it's about cash or crude. We did this in 2023 for an FX accretion, 3.3 billion Operation Gaza 1. We're gone to for 2 now, 4.5 to balance up the ones we're owing before, or the balance we're owing 1.5.
1.5.
Yeah. So added to this is 4.5. So when we clear that, we can do the math as how it comes to the volume of crude in terms of barrels of crude that is required. Government is quoting one thing. Some experts are saying the numbers are in excess from what government is quoting. But I want to read what the government officials had written in terms of their presser. They said the approval allows NNPCL Limited to refinance the outstanding balance of approximately 1.5 billion under the original 2023 facility, while unlocking an additional 3 billion in liquidity to strengthen the country's external reserves, support ongoing fiscal and infrastructure priorities of the government. And I know that our external reserve has pushed beyond $51 billion or 52 right now.
Absolutely.
As we speak. And then we've also reported that our revenue, though we have a revenue problem, but the target has been met, sometimes even exceeded from the numbers from the NRS. So people always get confused as to why do we need to continue to borrow if we have that much in our reserve, and this is part of FX accretion to fund some of the part of our project. I know borrowing is part of our preparation plan. Why do we need this? Are there no other hanging fruits we could use from the LNG, for instance, from condensate, which is part of the production in crude oil, to be able to offset some of these things that we're going for, new borrowings and mortgaging our future with forward sales of our crude oil. And even the issue, I'm yet to find out, I don't know the official numbers. I think the first one's about 11% when you look at the premium on it and maybe the finder's fee, all of the things that are incorporated. But S&P, for instance, had upgraded us from B- to B, although it's a junk category, but it's an improvement. So now our credit rating should have improved, so our interest should reduce. So I want you to tie all of this together.
So, well, I must say that I will start with where you stopped. Our credit rating has improved, and when you look at our reserve, it has been elevated significantly. And if you also look at quite a number of other decisions that are improved, it has also freed the government, funds spent on subsidy and a number of that. And I must say that I totally agree with S&P improvement in rating, credit rating for Nigeria. It's important. But let's talk about this new borrowing. Before now, Nigeria, this is not the first time, by the way. So what we are doing is refinancing. That is getting new facility. And what are we using? We are using food. We are using our food. Before now, we are saving approximately, if I can give you what the number is, we are saving about 11,250 barrels per day. That's what we are saving from 90,000 barrels that we promised. Now we'll be doing 78,750 barrels. That is what we'll be doing under the new arrangement. Now, it's not much of whether we borrow or not. The question I ask often as an economist is, what are we doing with the money? What are we doing with the money? Because economics are parameter of measuring. So the first thing we want to bother about is, if we are refinancing about 1.5 billion, what happens to the remaining $3 billion component? Or where are we spending it? If it's infrastructure, if it is road, first of all, when this money comes in, it goes to our reserve, you are going to see major elevation, significant elevation in our reserve. It's going to protect us when it comes to import cover, which is positive and appreciable, which is very good. The second one is that, where are we spending this money? Because to be in the reserve means that central bank is going to release naira equivalent to the to government. So, but which of the components, which government is it going? Is it federal government alone? Is it going to state government? How exactly are we spending this money? Can we put this money directly on infrastructure? I've argued over and over again that if you want to know how a country loan should be, it is not much of what is happening to debt to GDP. Those are stock variable. It really does not matter. There are nations that have over 80% of their debt to GDP. That does not really have major impact. Where you have impact is debt service to revenue. And for debt service to revenue, there are standard numbers you must look out for. For developing nations, even developed nations, everybody is looking at how to stay 1/3 of their revenue. That's 1/3. But Nigeria went as high as 90, even almost 99% at the time. But we have reduced that now to above 60, nearly 70% of our revenue is what we use to service debt. That is still far above the target of 33 8%, but it's an improvement. Again, if you look at it the other side of where we are coming from. So government should be very focused, because once you go above 66%, you are leaving the critical point to the worrisome part where you might have new debt crisis. We were in debt crisis at a time, so we may be back there if you are not careful. So we need to look at how are we going to pay this back. What happens if the global oil price reduce significantly? Does that mean that we have to pay more, or we have to give more in terms of crude that we are using to pick this up as collateral? So, but if this money goes into infrastructure, then I can tell you that this will have positive impact. So the other thing you look at, which is really very important, is what is the impact of debt on the economy. When you look at how Nigeria growth, when you plot the growth line on one side, on one line, and you plot increase in our debt, that's debt increase in debt rate, then you see, are you having, is it positive? Is it showing that is it impacting our growth enough? For Nigeria, maybe recently we started to see some positivity, but before now, when you borrow, instead of the GDP even growing, the GDP was going, the GDP growth was actually reducing. But with the positive we are saying now, I will tell you that where we put this money is where should take attention of those in government and also of citizens. It should never be anything recurring. It should be purely capital expenditure. And from the numbers, we are saying that there are promises of these funds going into capital expenditure. So if that be the case, it is fine. But we need to watch out for how are we going to do it such that we don't unnecessarily elevate our debt service to revenue. If we can manage that, then it will be a good way to go.
Well, clearly listening to your submission paints the picture that indeed Nigeria is facing really deep structural challenges, and the question as to accountability and transparency in terms of how, these loans, mega loans as some will call it, are being what it's been used for, is really a question that is begging for answer. But in terms of those loans, those foreign loans and all of that, I wonder how you think Nigerians can track exactly what these loans, mega loans, are used for. I mean, in terms of the milestones that the government will always say that how do you think Nigerians can perhaps maybe pay closer attention and track exactly what these monies are being used for?
Well, in a number of ways, we're going to look at it if they are budgeted for. If they are budgeted for, you are going to go physically. In fact, there are some NGOs, we have budgets, we have followed the money. Those are very fantastic non-governmental organizations doing excellent job, some of which I relate with, and I've attended some of their events to also see what they are tracking. We also have a number of independent research bodies, research organizations that you don't even come on, people don't know them, that are really tracking this for not just for domestic reasons, even for external reasons. That is not even for Nigeria. They want to see how much is Nigeria putting into those. But what you need to watch out for is areas where has been passed in the budget, because ordinarily you should not be spending any money borrowed if it is not budgeted for. So you look at it, you can also see that when government publish reports of what has been spent in terms of budget review, so you need to see how much was spent on the budget government claim. These are how much government claim was borrowed to finance such projects. So if you put all of this together, then you see that it's not what individual can do. We need corporate organization, we need bodies to carefully look at this, then we can know whether we are making progress or otherwise.
Dr. Alade, thank you so much as always for bringing your expertise for us. Well, the issue of the refinancing will continue to be a conversation as we get details. Some of us have specific things we're interested in looking at in terms of some of these loan, cash for crude that we're embarking on to refinance the old one, especially the interest and how this will be implemented. But I must thank you. I appreciate you. Dr. Paul Alaje is the Chief Economist at SPM Professionals. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll take a break, and when we come back after the break, today just from issues around religion and the states to the economy, we'll switch gears to something of importance as well, which has to do with your health, my health, and the medical practice. In just a moment, stay with us.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. Well, Nigerians have the brightest and smartest of minds anywhere in well. But this hour, let's turn our spotlight to the health sector, where, of course, Nigerians are also trailblazers. We're joined this hour by Dr. Gideofor Menakaya, who is the President, Medical Association of Nigerians across Great Britain. Thank you indeed, Doctor, for speaking to us. You're also the consultant neonatal pediatrician. Thank you indeed for joining us here on the program. Perhaps I should begin our conversation with Mr. President's appeal to you medical doctors to come back home and build our nation. We know how you and your colleagues have left. So my first question to you would be, when are you back, you and your colleagues?
Thank you for having me, and thank you so much for this time. We're coming back tomorrow if you would like us to. I think we are really wonderfully privileged to have been part of the last Diaspora Health Impact Initiative with the NITCOM Diaspora Week of Activities. And what we tried to do there was to showcase what was possible, bringing together the diaspora global medical expertise. And what you saw there were not just doctors, midwives, nurses from the UK, but also people as far afield as Australia, Western Canada, Germany and South Africa, and of course America as well. So what you saw there was the beginnings, I hope, of something that is going to be explosive in terms of really reshaping Nigerian healthcare systems.
So, Doctor, before we get to all of the things that you do, let's lay before you some of the things that you're familiar with. And the concern, as a matter of fact, I hope they don't go on that strike, because I understand the federal government and the resident doctors have met yesterday. They had said if the terms that they are putting out to the federal government is not met, they will go on strike on August the 10th. But the federal government has met with them. We haven't gotten the outcome of that meeting to avert that nationwide strike, because they constitute like the majority in terms of doctors in a healthcare facility. But when you met with the president, I think the issue as clear as crystal: welfare, working condition, remuneration. What kind of feedback did you get from the president? Did you lay these as well, besides what you're doing, for your colleagues who are here and for those who may even want to come back if the conditions are better?
I think that there is no healthcare system that doesn't struggle. You will be aware that that in the UK, the resident doctors were on strike for over 2 years, really looking at terms and conditions of their practice. So it's not unique to Nigeria that doctors or healthcare professionals, or indeed any workforce, we look at what is required for them to make their terms and conditions and welfare the right approach for them, and it's for the negotiation with the government to continue. What I can say, and I remember very clearly what the president said. He said, in those countries where you are, there are people whose hands are on the plow, working hard to improve their country's well-being and country's infrastructure. And I think what he asked us to do with our expertise and experience and everything else we have is to work alongside our colleagues in Nigeria, because already there are very clear policy statements and policy frameworks for that. And so by working alongside our colleagues in Nigeria, we will be able to support what's going on, improve welfare, improve their well-being, and additionally help to bring those tasks, those skills that I think perhaps there have been real difficulties in bringing those across to Nigeria. But there are lots of Nigerian healthcare professionals across the globe who are really excited about the possibility of doing this more consistently rather than doing that in a one-off sort of one-off events.
Well, Doctor, thank you so much to you and your colleagues. That's one sector where there are those who think that maybe perhaps the government needs to pay more attention to in terms of the monies budgeted for the health sector and all of that. But let me even speak to the issues around medical tourism. There was a time in this country where we read that people left the UK and US to come to Nigeria, especially in the University of Ibadan. But the reverse is the case for many years down the line. In fact, all the presidents of this country, or most of the presidents of this country, from Tinubu to Buhari, have always had to travel for medical tourism. When you see that play out, I'm just wondering, what would it cost us to have the kind of systems in place where VIPs would be comfortable enough not to travel, but to use our own health care systems here in Nigeria?
I think that's a really important point you're making there. I just give you a sense of the quality as well as the expertise of Nigerians across the globe, and also the increasing expertise and what you have in Nigeria. And again, thinking around the structures that are being put in place within the Nigerian setting. And as you say that, I know, for example, that there are people from other countries who are now coming to Nigeria for care, super specialist care. So we just talk about things like the sort of things we did during the course of the National Diaspora Week. One of our colleagues from Australia, what they did was to use ultrasonography to try and understand the condition called endometriosis, to diagnose that. Prior to this, it would have been having to do that by a surgery. And they were also training radiologists and other clinicians about laparoscopic techniques. I know also that during this period, there were colleagues from South Africa who did one of the very first procedures using interventional radiology to manage intrauterine fibroids. So rather than having a really big operation, you were able to simply use interventional radiology to try and embolize fibroids in the womb. And of course, there are many colleagues of ours who do robotic surgery. There are hospitals in Nigeria now that have the equipment and the resources to do those things. I know during the course of our program, we visited some of the hospitals in Nigeria where there are really some really excellent facilities at sort of cutting-edge medicine. A lot of them led by Nigerians. And of course other international people. So I think that what we want to do is to harness all these experts, robotic surgeons, laparoscopic surgeons, pediatricians, neonatal pediatricians, obstetricians, you name it. I think across the globe, Nigerians are there working at very high levels, setting up those policies, setting up those clinical guidelines, and therefore there is no reason. Certainly with the infrastructure we now have in Nigeria, why we cannot continue to push this. Just to say something around the framework for this, we obviously have the health workforce migration policy, which was signed by the president in 2024, and a specific sort of practice framework for that is what the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria termed strengthening collaboration and advancing clinical excellence. So that's a framework that the Honorable Minister of State for Health launched in 2025 in London. So what I really want to say to colleagues is that the era of reverse tourism is one aspect of the wider healthcare engagement. But actually, we want to think not only reverse tourism, but the individual patients, the Nigerian patients as a whole, and making sure that the healthcare infrastructure is there for them. Whilst tourism brings in more money, I suppose, but what absolutely is important is that the healthcare of our colleagues, of our citizens, are the best they can be, and we have the infrastructure to do that. Not only with colleagues who are residents in Nigeria doing extremely hard work, but obviously leveraging and harnessing all those doctors and healthcare professionals that are all in the diaspora. And I think that it's bringing that forward that I think is what the key. I think that was the plea that the president made when he met us 2 weeks ago. I think what you have there is they've set out the framework. We've got the regulatory guidelines for that. We've got lots of hospitals and facilities that are there to take that forward. And what we now want to do is to continue to do that consistently and to measure the impact we are having across the country. And just give you one example. Sorry.
Now you can land on that for a second and throw in my question.
Well, just give you one example. One of the key things that we know Nigeria has struggled with is maternal and neonatal deaths. Nigeria has the highest maternal and neonatal deaths, if not in around the world, if not in Africa. And so what we did from the UK, ourselves and our nursing and midwifery colleagues, is to develop a whole new way of training staff. And so we trained in the Northwest sector, Northwest zone. We trained about 80 or 90 people. And what we are going to do is to cascade that training on how they would, or how they can improve care for mothers and babies. We are looking at the sort of things that cause mothers to die, maternal hemorrhage and poor breathing at the time they are born. But also working as multidisciplinary team. So what you have there is beginnings to change the culture within the system, so that everybody can work together as a group, and perhaps looking and making sure we are bringing everybody together rather than thinking there has to be a hierarchy, because it's that multidisciplinary team that actually makes it possible for everybody to be used, everybody's skill set to be used in a way that benefits the patient. So yes,
doctor, yes, yeah. As we need to wind down, mobility of labor is one of our biggest problems. That's why we have these doctors going abroad. So we're in deficit in terms of the capacity, numerical capacity that we require for our country. Maybe we're doing 1,000 to 4,000, 1 to 4,000 or 1 to 5,000, as against the global standard of maybe 1 to 1,000 or 1 to 1,000 or 1,600. I mean, doctor to patient ratio.
Yes.
But there's a lot of attention on the federal government, and sometimes we do not look at the subnationals as much as we should. So let's take that opportunity. You've met with the president, but what about the conversation at the subnational level? Because that's where the real impact happens. The federal government is one big institution, but the subnationals, we have the wards, which are components of local government areas, and then the larger one of the state level. We have all the state governors building, the president was even not happy the other day, said they're building flyovers in low traffic areas. So for instance, now my state, Akwa Ibom State, the former governor built one very mega hospital. I don't know the state of that hospital, but I don't think it's in as the shape it used to be. The current governor, for instance, now is building another mega. If he follows through with this, it's perhaps going to be the best hospital in terms of all the things that have been put there in Nigeria, built by state government. But these are mega things. How many people will be able to afford the services that those hospitals will give them? So let's talk about how to make healthcare affordable and accessible and efficient as well as effective for the local people who can't afford the big monies that these hospitals that have been built will definitely charge.
I think it's a great question, because it then looks at the wider debate around healthcare funding. And that again is something that every country wrestles with. I think in your question, there were a couple of things there. One was health worker migration, and I suppose what are the drivers, the push factors and the pull factors for health worker migration across the country. Internationally, and I think that's where the health worker migration policy has come in, which recognizes the individual's aspirations for his own professional development, but at the same time harnessing those of us in the diaspora who left the country and look at ways in which we can contribute in however way we can our expertise to Nigeria. So there have been two. I think they're win-win in some respects in terms of that approach. I talked about the SCALE program, which is a relationship between the institutions of Nigeria as well as the institutions of the UK. Because what you want to do is to make sure that everything that is done is based on institutions rather than individuals. Individuals can do things, but their impact is not as much. But when institutions are working, then actually their impact is much bigger. So within that, we've got SCALE, like I talked about, and increasingly, the Federal Ministry of Health has just launched a portal called the NIDAP, Nigerian and Diaspora Advanced Healthcare Portal. And what that portal is there is to do is to ask any diaspora professional or organization to express interest in what they want to do, and that portal can match you to areas of need. I think it's really important that as much as possible, we tend to have to work within those sorts of systems. Now, you're right that the federal government is sort of one big organization, but health is very much a sub-federal provision. And I talked there about some of the hospitals that state governors and institutions are building, particularly to look after the healthcare needs of their state. So absolutely, we will clearly support that. I think that, and of course, again, at local government levels, there are also measures in that space. When you're in the diaspora and you want to make impact, it's really important that all those layers of states do align. And one of the good things that really came out of the event that happened during Diaspora Week was that the agencies of state were aligned in doing things. So there is nothing stopping federal government to set out a framework and then for the state and local governments to key into those frameworks. So for example, for this mega hospital being built in Akwa Ibom, it may be that that hospital wants to do robotic surgery, or it may want to do, I don't know, laparoscopic surgery, and there's no reason why that government or that governor cannot reach out to this portal and say, who are those in the diaspora that have those skill sets? And then from there, those people can then be supported to provide that support, that skill set in that hospital. Yes, you can have a big hospital, but if you don't have the skill set in that hospital and the governance, then actually it doesn't work so well. And when it comes to funding, in the UK, we have a national health service. It is free at the point of use. There have been lots of conversations around National Health Insurance Scheme, National Health Insurance Agency. I think that could be one way in which we can really work to do a lot more with that, include the diaspora expertise. How do we contribute? How do we participate in the health insurance schemes such that we can reach out to patients in Nigeria? So I think those conversations are live at the moment with WHO as well as NHIA as well as the Federal Ministry of Health to work out how do you bring in diaspora expertise working alongside colleagues to make sure that healthcare is as much as possible reach out to everybody down to the ward level.
Well, it's a fine place to anchor a conversation with you this hour. Dr. Jide Ofor is Menakaya is the President Medical Association of Nigerians across Great Britain. Is also a consultant neonatal pediatrician. Thank you indeed for your insights on the program.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
All right. Wonderful conversation. Well, that's the much we can take in terms of conversations right here on the morning brief. But let's get to switch gears before we go and take what exactly you are saying on socials, Jeff.
Yes, so we have this video of a woman jumping into the lagoon near Idumota Kata Bridge. That's if you go to the island and you're not using the Lagos third mainland bridge, but she was rescued by local boat operators. So we don't know the full story, the intention, but we understand she jumped into the lagoon. We really don't know what the full story is, but it would be nice to know what it is. But maybe she wanted to commit suicide, we don't know. But I guess maybe life's challenges or a health challenge, it could be one of those things. But, you know, we want to admonish Nigerians that, yes, things are very challenging, which is why when we tell government things are challenging, but you must do your best to keep hope alive, to keep faith alive, pray to your God, believe, work hard, and see how it plays out. But we must commend the persons who were able to be quick in their response to rescue her when she jumped into that river. But Kelly, we need to find out exactly what the reason is from government.
I have the Lagos State government
where we can get exactly, but it's very painful to see that, you know, someone will just jump into it. So there are only two reasons. There are only two reasons that comes to mind. It's either a health issue or just social issue, economic issue that just bites hard, and you're like, no, let's just end it.
I'm not doing this anymore.
All right. We wish her the very best. Wish her quick recovery.
And this is like a second chance, so don't give up.
So please don't give up.
Renew your hope.
You're not sounding like President Bola Tinubu.
All right. But let's just get and talk about
serious issue.
Serious issue. It doesn't like news. I love playing for Nigeria, but you have to pay for your own flight. You get to the hotel and there is no electricity. You wash your own kit, and even if you make one bad pass, the coach is screaming at you. Alex will be speaking here. Take a listen to him.
I love playing for my country.
Of course, yeah.
However, sometimes you have to book your own flight. Sometimes you have to pay for your upgrade. Obviously, because you want to be comfortable, sometimes you have to sort your own flight. Sometimes you're in the hotel. You know NEPA when light goes.
Yeah.
Oh,
jeez.
Yeah. Sometimes there's that. I've now gone to Nigeria. Obviously, you have to sort out your own flight. The hotels, like I remember my room. There was like 3 in my room. You have to wash your own kit. The pitch was half grass, half astro. Some of the astro was even off the pitch, like it was just finished. The staff, like. The coach, if you make one bad pass, what is wrong with you now?
Oh, God.
I remember one time, you passed the ball off the pitch, they made him do 2 laps. I thought, yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking, like this is mad, but
it just feels like home to me.
Yeah, no, I was learning, but like I was enjoying it.
Yeah.
Well, this is Nigeria, Alex. In Nigeria, we believe in hard work. So, I mean, you must have made your monies, but we want to ensure that you do not forget the values you got when you were here.
Are you mocking us or what is that?
But sometimes we have to do these things for the love of country. For the love of country. So, Alex, we don't have a perfect system. We are hoping, thriving and praying that we get there someday, but I mean, God has blessed you, so please just be grateful.
Well, I just wish Austin, our colleague, Okonakwa, who is in London, will be the one to talk about what Alex is talking about, because Austin doesn't have very nice words for the NFF. In fact, when you hear him talk about the administrators of our football, it feels like some of the persons that are just there to just waste our time, not really interested in the game. But this is a fallout of when those kinds of leadership exists within our football body, which is that, look, I sometimes believe that when Nigeria is playing football, whether it's at the continental or the global level, even these evil bandits used to relax.
Yeah, that's the only thing that unites Nigerians.
That's why I love football. If you want to know why I love football as far as national team is concerned, it's the reason why. That's the only moment.
Yeah.
Nigeria can never. Nobody talks religion. Nobody talks politics. Nobody cares.
Where it comes from and all.
A sense of patriotism comes alive. And these are the gentlemen and the ladies who give us that moment of pride. The least we can do is to give them the best of treatment so that when they go to podcasts, we don't hear things like this. Well, thank you for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.
Sunrise Daily is up next. I'm Kelly Ediga. Bye now.